Hey guys, welcome back to the What's Up Grimes podcast. I'm joined by MK as usual.
Hello, darlings.
MK, how was your week?
Oh, I'm glad it's over. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we had a rough grown adult lady week.
Yes, very rough.
But you nailed some eye makeup in like 30 minutes.
Thank you. I was a little nervous, but I got there. So we're making some progress here.
10 out of 10. So guys, it's an exciting night for us. Tonight we're going to talk about Halfaxa. We're going to record another podcast, and then we have the amazing Lance Moore, who's an artist, joining us later tonight. So we're here to hang out with each other for a long time.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, guys, let's dive right into Halfaxa. We started with Getty Primes last month. We talked about Getty Primes.
Oh my God.
This is the first in our album series. We're now on to the second in our Grimes album series. Halfaxa was released in October of 2010. Its main genres are synth pop, ambient pop, dark wave, and ethereal wave. Claire states that it was written after having a, quote, good time with her friend Duffy. Which, have you seen certain shows where Duffy is on stage?
Never.
Yeah,
Who's Duffy? Which one?
Oh, MK. Duffy's a whole thing. So she talks about Duffy in multiple interviews. One is like not that well known. She's like behind stage with a couple friends. It's kind of a crappy interview, and she talks about Duffy. Duffy is on stage on several of her like baby beginning shows, dancing as very much himself. And then she mentions Duffy in this album breakdown interview that everybody is familiar with. She says she just has a good time with him in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that she was, quote, really into exes at the time. So she decided to name the album Halfaxa versus keeping it Halifax, and also said she really liked girls' names. And of course, you and I talked about it on one of the other podcasts, kind of foreshadowing for her naming her baby X.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing pictures of him now. Yes. The dancing.
Uh-huh.
Were they together? Were they in a relationship?
Doesn't look like it, but I really would want to ask her, hey, where is he now? Like, are you guys still friends?
I didn't know who he was until now, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say probably not.
She's never brought him up since then. Okay, so Halfaxa represents in several ways the beginning of a transformation period for Boucher. This comes from an article by Obscure Sound. All the songs on Halfaxa are recorded like on Getty Primes. It's very DIY fashion, directly through microphone on Boucher's computer. Change is on the horizontal, though, at least in regard to studio methods. So she's tweaking her sound little by little. Tweaking.
Yeah. That sounds like it should be a word.
It should.
Yeah.
Halfaxa is 16 tracks.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say that Halfaxa is 16 tracks in total, including bonus tracks. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, I read the Pitchfork article about this album, and it has like reminiscent medieval themes, like Gregorian chants. And I randomly saw another interview with her. I don't know, we do our homework here at What's Up with What's Up? We do. So the interview where she has like the line makeup and like the little bit, the bangs, and she was talking about Genesis and saying she was raised Catholic, and that song really was about her remembering what it was like when she was like 7 or so, and thinking that Catholicism was like an action movie. So that's where she got that idea. And I thought that was so interesting that Halfaxa also has like very church-like medieval sounds too. So I wonder if she was just really into Catholicism with this album as well, just representing it and, a throwback to it.
That's what it looks like, and you actually set the next couple of facts up perfectly, because she explained that the record is meant to be an electronic interpretation of middle-aged Christian reverence, an exploration of sensations beyond earthly experience, quote from Claire, I wanted to capture the beauty of being in a beautiful cathedral and hearing reverbed devotional vocal music and really believing in heaven and in hell. And that came from the Pitchfork interview that you're referencing.
Yeah, that was a good article. This album wasn't one of the ones I got into first. Was it for you as well? Is this one? No, it's not a favorite. I mean, there's a couple songs that you're like, oh, okay, this is where she's on the right path towards becoming herself.
Yeah, I can hear. I was listening to it again today right before we recorded, and there's several songs where I'm like, oh yeah, there's that ethereal, sucks you in type tones. But I'm really more so into the more modern albums of hers. And I feel like on Twitter, I'm seeing that people fall into one of two camps. You're either old school Grimes or you're newer album Grimes, and people come for you if you talk about the older albums in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, when people are starting out, they're not going to have the same skill set. They're going to grow, and clearly her producing skills and just songwriting skills in general got better with time. So it has really nothing to do with hate on those albums. She just wasn't where she is now. Right. And, no hate on that.
No hate on that at all. And I love the concept behind the album. She refers to it as her medieval album, which we referenced a couple times. Along that same theme, apparently many of her theories for Halfaxa were inspired by her own idol at the time, Hildegard von Bingen, which she does bring up in that interview, who was a 12th century German saint without musical training, whose music was inspired by divine visions she received starting at the age of 3. As explained in von Bingen's theological text, after the fall, music became a means of assessing a lost state of perfection, which sounds very Grimes-ish.
Very Grimes-ish. I wonder when she kind of got over the whole, like, I've gotten the religious, bug out of me, and now I'm going to move on to like more pop music.
I'm also curious, if we asked her today, what are your views about spirituality and about religion, what she would say.
I'm trying to think of what exactly she was saying on Twitter recently. She was talking about trying to find some kind of religion, right? She was like kind of workshopping what would be a good place for her. I think she's looking for some kind of spiritual calling.
Right, because we see this referenced again in Miss A with New Gods, where she wanted to create these gods just like they used to have in pagan culture, where you go to one god for one thing and the next god for another thing. That felt very comforting to her. So I can only imagine that she still, thinks about it in her free time.
Yeah. And personifying nature as a god too. She's very much into that. And that seems to be crossing over into book 1 too. Same kind of realm.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing about her tweets, which we'll get to tweets on one of the next podcasts, because there's been a lot of C tweets recently. I can never tell. Podcast. If we could just read C's tweets for an hour in her style, but I can never tell with her tweets what she's serious about versus what she's joking about. So obviously some of them are clearly jokes, but the religious ones, for example, are you actually looking for a polytheistic religion? Are you interested in that? Or was that just something that you're joking because that sounded like a fun thing to tweet about while you were high on meds from your supposed alleged facelift? Don't know.
I think she's probably looking and longing for something. I mean, she did go to Catholic school. She had that kind of structure. And when you have that structure as a kid and you grow up and you have options, you kind of need to find where your spirituality will go. You need to feed that somehow. And expressing yourself through art isn't always going to feed that spirituality. You kind of might need an actual religion or some kind of, meditation or, some kind of spiritual activity.
Yeah. If you guys are familiar at all, Google something called the wellness wheel for your mental health. So there's different facets of wellness. It's not just physical wellness, which we all think of like working out, eating right. There's also
Yeah.
intellectual wellness and emotional wellness, making sure you're okay, or going to therapy to make sure you're okay. Intellectual wellness, stimulating yourself through your career, environmental wellness, are you safe where you're at? One of the other facets of wellness is spiritual wellness, meaning how are you finding purpose and meaning in your life? And MK, you can speak on this, because I think for C, something that comes up when you become a parent is now I have to choose what I'm going to impart to my kids about spiritual beliefs. So I
that's
imagine
very true.
it becomes more prevalent in your life when you're a parent trying to decide, how do we teach our kiddos?
Yeah. I have not been excellent about that. To be honest. I mean, my oldest is 8, so he's really not looking for that per se, but he does believe in God. He talks about it and asks to go to church sometimes, but doesn't, we don't really get into anything. My husband was raised very, very, very Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I had a Catholic and a Protestant parent, so we didn't really go to church all too often.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a huge split right there.
Yeah.
Speaking of your kids, by the way, you sent me the cutest video this week of your youngest is speaking a full sentence for the first time.
That's true. Yeah. My youngest is 5, and many of you know he has nonverbal autism. So he says mama and love, one word responses. He's never really said a full sentence ever, up until the past 2 weeks, where he's said, I love you, and done the ASL along with it, saying, I love you to his brother. And it's been the most amazing experience. He won't say it to me or my husband, but
not.
he will certainly tell his brother that he loves him, which has meant so much to his big brother. It's been a bonding experience for them, and I'm so glad that we were all able to witness it. So sharing that with you and others in the community has been really awesome.
It was super touching to watch too. Okay, guys, Claire states that she, quote, didn't know what she was doing at the time of producing this record, which of course she didn't. It's what we talked about. You're brand new to this. You just put out Getty Primes, and then you had this great week in Halfaxa, and you decided to produce another album. And she didn't know that millions of people would one day be hearing this. To me, that would be terrible. People hearing my rough draft of stuff, and I never thought I'd become famous. And now everybody's listening to it, which it's not a bad album. It's not like it's trash by any means, but still, it must feel like her rough draft to her.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say Getty Primes is way more of a rough draft. This is like maybe a second draft.
That
yeah. Because Dream Fortress, that's my favorite song on this album. It's a good song. That's something that you could totally hear on Visions.
Oh, yeah. That's true. There's another 2010 interview, and the way I tend to like to research these albums is to look into the interviews, because the interviews at the time give you a glimpse into what C is thinking at the time and how she's feeling at the time. And by the way, off topic, MK, in one of the interviews, she talks about getting ready to go on stage, and the way she gets ready to go on stage is to like drink a beer, have some throat lozenges, and then she says, I like to do 20 skips on the skipping rope to get hyped. It's like,
I just see her drinking a beer with like cough drop and doing it all at once. Oh my gosh, I'm throwing stuff.
It was so Grimes.
All right. Oh my gosh, I wish there was video of that.
This is a pretty great insight for her in this 2010 interview. She says, I always make music that's the opposite of how I feel. So like Getty Primes is pretty poppy and Halfaxa is pretty dark. It's opposite to the weather too. Right now I'm cold and depressed, so I make really happy music. At the time she was working on Visions, so that makes sense. When I was really hot, overheated, and at my dad's wedding and feeling good in the summertime, I made Halfaxa, which is depressing and dark. The music I'm listening to right now is gospel music and happy music because it makes me feel less bad about living in Montreal in the wintertime when there's no green. So there's no doubt that she struggles with depression.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, Canada in the winter, forget about it. You need like a seasonal depression lamp for that kind of weather, you know?
Crazy. This brings us into a few of the songs. Weregild is technically my favorite, not actually because of the way the melodies sound, but because it's the one that she says, Voinamir, say something, Voinamir, and I find that so endearing and so very Grimes-ish in it. And ironically, at the time of me researching this, y'all, I was listening to one of the great courses on Audible. Again, hashtag not sponsored, but we should be. Hello. The great courses on Audible are like my favorite pastime because I'm a dork and I really miss being in school. And so I was listening to one on English history, and it was talking about Weregild. So Weregild basically refers to the cost of a human life. So that's the way that their legal system worked back in medieval England. Basically, this song is a jittering incantation of a dance track, takes its name from an archaic legal value placed on all human beings and property based on social rank.
That is so cool.
Right? And it's so, again, see where the intellectualism comes in. I couldn't think to write this or to, I don't know, come up with these concepts.
That's what I'm wondering. Did she research this, or is this something she just already knew and wrote her songs that way? Or was she writing and then looking up stuff and researching? Because obviously, I mean, with Getty Primes, she's a big fan of Dune and was reading the book, obviously, to help. I mean, aided the book, the album.
Yeah.
So I think with this, I'm curious if she was simultaneously learning about that time and then writing it, or if it's something that she just already had knowledge of.
MK, I don't know how often you're on the Grimes subreddit. How often are you on the Grimes subreddit?
I dabble
as well, usually when I'm doing research, and sometimes I wish I did not dabble. Usually I DM you when I dabble, and I feel strongly one way or the other. But I saw a depressing comment, because the hater's gonna hate on the Grimes subreddit.
Yeah.
And one of the comments said basically she is dumb, that she acts intellectual and says all the hot topic keywords and thinks that makes her sound smart. And I'm like, have you listened to a full interview with her, especially like the full podcast, the Lex Friedman podcast, where she's clearly following the topic through? She's not throwing out key phrases. She's having a full conversation.
I'm sorry. Anyone that hooks up with Elon Musk in a serious way can't just be a phony intellect.
Also true. They're perfect for each other.
I know.
Guys, we're recording this on October 7th, and Elon's been busy getting in trouble on Twitter solving Ukrainian and Russian issues. Or so
he's in the news every single day.
Literally.
Like, that must be exhausting for that whole family.
Literally. And if you're me and you follow Elon's jet or Elon's plane, whatever it is, on Twitter, so you can see when he like takes off and lands in his personal jet. Oh yeah. MK, you gotta follow it. It's such a riot.
Okay.
He flies like multiple times per day. And I'm like, that's exhausting. Like, flying once a month for me would be like, I'm out. But like multiple times per day, he's jetting off to Tesla and SpaceX and whatever. And it's mostly between Texas and California, but still, how do you have energy?
So instead of a driver, he has a pilot?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's wild.
Sorry, guys. Way off topic, but we had to discuss it. Dragvindil is a Viking sword in Final Fantasy, one of the Final Fantasies. I didn't write down which one. That's nice.
That sounds about right.
Sounds whichever one. Devon is her ex-boyfriend. Magical Clouds, Devon Welsh, but in the song lyric says, or one of them says, but you don't love me anymore, and I've never felt so broken up before. And then she went on to date Mr. Musk years later.
How long was she with Devon?
Question. It didn't say when I looked into it, but he's featured on that early documentary that she's in, and I forget what it's called, and it's like a tour diary. Anyway,
I'll have to check that out. I know very little about her love life prior to Elon Musk. There's not much out there unless I'm looking in the wrong places.
I know about Devin, I know about James Brooks, and that's all I know about. And then this next part, one of my favorite facts. Somewhere along the line, Boucher lost the rights to her early records. 6 years after its original release, Halfaxa is being reissued by Artibus, her first label. Boucher has made it clear that she has nothing to do with the reissue. Copies of the record sell for over $200 online, so reissuing it on vinyl is a convenient way for Artibus to make Halfaxa more accessible while also making money. She references this throughout several interviews where she talks about how she signed an NDA and she can't talk about what happened early on. But apparently she got screwed over.
Oh, that's with this album.
I think so.
Then, yeah, I do remember her talking about that. I wonder what happened. I mean, obviously she was young and didn't know what she was signing and worked with people that were shady.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning, you're just so happy that somebody approached you.
Yeah.
Like any yes is a good yes. And so I can see myself being young and dumb and signing something. Also, I was dumb till I was like 27, like severely dumb till I was 27.
I find that very hard to believe, Jen.
Well, I look back at my life choices up till 27 and like that was questionable and that was not something I would have done now. So I feel bad for like 21-year-olds going through it because I remember what it was like to be 21.
Oh, when I think back on my 21 days, very cringy.
Same. I did dumb stuff.
It's all part of life.
Growing at least. As you're just supposed to go through phases, right? Like, all right. So what did I miss on Halfaxa that you picked up on or that we needed to discuss more of?
I would like to... Getty Primes I couldn't really get into as much. I love the concept, but Halfaxa, I really love the concept and I really love a lot of the sounds from it. It's beautiful. I mean, there's certain songs where you're like the ones where she's like, and you're like, okay, you're just playing, you're figuring it out. And that's that's more like the medieval Gregorian chants. It's not something you want to pop on all the time. You're like, I'm going to make dinner and then listen to, but there are some snippets of real Grimes. And she's like I think she really found her voice with this album.
Yes. Yeah, it sounds so much more Grimes-like. It's leading into Visions, which we'll go over on another podcast.
Jen's jam.
It's my jam. It is my favorite. Oblivion. I could listen to Oblivion all day, every day, nighttime. It's such a good song. Another thing I found when I was researching this was she was talking to an interviewer at a festival about who she was into at the time while she was recording this album. She says she was into Salem Burial, Al Green, medieval choral music, there it is, and Mariah Carey as recent influences, which we all know about Mariah Carey. That recent DJ set where she dropped All I Want for Christmas Is You in the DJ set. Classic Grimes.
There was another DJ set eons ago where she put that in as well. I don't remember what year that was, but it was Art Angel's era.
Yeah, and she got canceled over it at the time, which is why she trolled by putting All I Want for Christmas Is You in the recent DJ set.
Yeah.
All right. Go see.
You can hear Mariah Carey in this album. Like the high vocals, like you can really hear that influence.
Yeah.
Not a bad influence.
Not a bad influence. It gets brought up in the Nardwuar interview where he gives her a Mariah Carey album, I believe. Oh, yeah. Classic Grimes lore. So I know for many of you, this is one of your favorite albums. I'm thinking specifically of people like Casper. Who love this song.
We're looking at you, Casper.
He calls it Halfaxa Supremacy. Let us know what you guys think on our comment section. And we will see you guys on our next podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.